Weekly update for Friday, May 15th. As promised, back for more with Chris Warner's What I Learned, his latest book. And this entry is from 25 October 2018. Question: how long does it take an average person to become a U.S. paratrooper? Answer: never. An average person will never become a U.S. paratrooper. And he goes on, I am so badass I made it to jump week twice. My second time at Airborne school had an interesting experience about defying the chain of command and questioning official narrative. It was during week 2, Tower Week, although we didn't actually get on the tower this week. At one point, one of the Black Hats gave us all a speech about how every airborne class makes it through 5 full jumps, even after 9/11. This is where my age and wisdom had a role to play. I talked to Chris on the phone. He said he'd been in the Army for about 3 years at this point. I'd had an adult job on 9/11. I knew that all planes were grounded for several days and only military/intelligence flights were started first. Normal air traffic started a week or so later. Moreover, I knew that 9/11 was on a Tuesday. We were at TRADOC, that's the training program, the most ancient of military training, where methods don't really apply when you get to your unit and learn how things really work. Is Sergeant Airborne telling us that Airborne School was such a high priority that they just carried on with jump week as normal, or just got all 5 jumps made on Monday? The former was extremely unlikely, and the latter is just flat out impossible, unless they knew about 9/11 in advance and prepared for it. I did seriously think about this just to check every fact I remembered to the best of my ability. Then I stood up. Sergeant Airborne, I have a question. His response was hilarious. No, you don't. Good way of making me doubt myself. Yet I persevered. I pointed out that 9/11 was on a Tuesday, and it wasn't possible for that airborne class to have made all 5 jumps before that. He gave me an answer that was just a bunch of BS, which was fine with me. I wasn't going to argue. I sat down with no follow-up. But it bothered him. He continued his speech, and at some point he really had to justify it to himself. To his credit, he didn't hide it. He pulled out his cell phone and started scrolling back through the calendar. He looked up at me and said something to the effect of, if 9/11 wasn't on a Tuesday, I'm going to smoke the S-T out of you. That's fine, Sergeant Airborne, praying that I didn't make a mistake somewhere. Of course I didn't. His search showed that September 9th, 2001 wasn't September 9th. Okay, I hadn't noticed that before, that September 9th was indeed on a Tuesday, and he undoubtedly knew better than I did what effect it had on air travel, including at Airborne School. He did his best to explain it away. I'll assume that part of his speech has been changed, but it was clear that he didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. No one else in the class believed it. Nothing more was said about it. I didn't feel any deep and abiding need to challenge how the Black Hats make speeches. I'd set the record straight at the time and challenged a higher ranking NCO who would smoke the S-T out of me if I had been wrong. My wounds from 9/11 are probably as big as his, and I wasn't remotely going to attack him as a horrible person. All I cared about was introducing a fact, and whatever happened next was of no concern. It's why I still cherish the military. They fight to win, and to do that, they need as many facts as possible. Only an insane person would order people out of a perfectly good airplane under false beliefs that 9/11 happened late in the week, or some such BS about that class getting all 5 flights in before the planes hit the towers. The military's as subject to misguided beliefs as any other organization, but they know individual self-interest, unit cohesion, and they want to win the battle. That Sergeant Airborne was just doing his job, I challenged him on the facts. He went out of his way to look it up and admit in front of everybody that I was right. Kudos to that guy, and to me for having the courage to speak up. We're talking about jumping out of effing airplanes. Do you really want to do that with a guy who is too scared of you to speak up? And there you go. That's a weekly update for this week. I hope we'll see a bunch of you again next week.